Yo, peace, peace. Barghani, Islam, Salam, Etepu, Rahubat, Gino Lakonani, Chief Noble Bandele Elamine, back again in the building. And today's show, we're going to be discussing how Africans aided the ancestors in Kemet and West Africa. And so I got my homeboy today as a guest. Amen Maat-Ra is in the building, no doubt. And so we're going to get into that. Peace, God. Peace, God. So before we get into this, let me hit you
Peace
with
and
an
blessings.
ad, and then we'll be right back. I'm gonna hit you with an ad. We're gonna be right back. All right.
Oh, if they just let me see, or it just on me, it's showing me the light. Once they set us free, knowledge is the key, guiding me alright, and that feel right.
I mean, it's cool. All right, y'all. My fault. All right, I had somebody come through here real quick. So I'm back in the building. So like I said, today's show we're gonna be dealing with how Africans aided the ancestors in Kemet in West Africa. Um, Before we get started, y'all, please smash that like button. Please share this video, right? And also subscribe to the channel. If y'all want to donate, things of that nature, we can donate, right? Um, and like I said, before we get into this show, what I want to do is show y'all. Uh, what I want to show is Brother Amin Ra's book. Now, the book we're gonna be dealing out of is the Amin Ra Illumination, Volume One. Okay, focusing and honoring the ancestors. So you can get this book on Amazon, or you can get it also through indigenousmoors.org. All right. So we got that one. And also because we're dealing with the ancestors, we also got the Holy Ancestral Covenant, the Book of the Ancestors. So these are all correlation, you know, with the program tonight. Okay. So I just wanted to throw that out there um, before we got started, man. So, like I said, I got brother I'm in my eye in the building. He's been, we've done a couple videos. Y'all know how it go. And I'm gonna let you get in on this, brother. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, we're back at it again. I've been wanting to build on this because this is going to probably segue to maybe a two or three parter. Because I definitely want to piggyback on some text that you wrote with lifestyle, indigenous lifestyle and living. So this is all come together and everything. But it's the topic of the ancestors. Even in a lot of circles, the name of the ancestors, how and why the hieroglyphs were constructed in the manner they were to speak upon and invoke our ancestors in ritual or in our daily endeavors or whatever, that's always been an interest to me. And I noticed in a lot of discussions in circles, we don't get a real in-depth, like family-like spiritual discussion, like where we can go deeper than traditional European demonstrations of what some of our rituals and ceremonies were for the ancestralization process. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting into it. So with that said, if you don't want to build on something real quick, you know how we roll. We jump right into this one.
Yes, sir. I'm ready. I'm ready for you, man. You always teaching me as well, so I'm definitely ready for you to go in on it, man. We can get started.
All right. So it's a familiar tradition that a lot of people are familiar with, but we're going to take different angles and we're going to look at it linguistically, and we're going to also look at the glyphs and start bridging into other cultures. Because one of the debates I constantly hear that it almost breaks my heart is this complete disconnect and rejection of a cultural connection between Kemet, West Africa, and Central Africa, which are our primary hubs where we were kidnapped from and brought over here. It's almost like it's a nonstop attack to almost isolate us, almost as if West Africans and Central Africans were on another continent and never interacted with other Africans on the continent, as if we're not a collective family. So with that and said, let's get started. We're gonna have some fun tonight. I think this is gonna be a good build. Let's see here.
All right. Y'all get in the building. Y'all like this video, please subscribe, man.
Now,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
Now, the ceremony at hand is what is called in Kemet the Wepet-er, or Wepet-er, like runner with the ER sounding, which is known to Egyptologists as the opening of the mouth and eyes ceremony, which is generally abbreviated to the opening of the mouth ceremony, but it's technically the opening of the mouth and the eyes. This amazing.
Okay. Hold on. Before you, you drop. Hold on. Before you get started, because you jumped into the opening of the mouth, right?
Yep. That's not the complete title.
So, for y'all are familiar with the opening of the mouth ceremony, right? Can you explain that a little bit? Like, just set them up for this part right here.
Oh, I'm about to get into it now. Now, okay. This amazing African ceremony, this ritual, this starts from the pre-dynastic period all the way up to Roman times. Even the Romans, you had the Greeks and the Romans, they started to copy aspects of this in their own roundabout way. It is a sacred consecration ritual for statues that are designated as a vessel to hold a beloved spirit, tombs, and for mummified human beings to regain their memory and consciousness in the spirit realm that will become great and useful ancestors. Now, in the old kingdom of Kemet, the process of transforming into an ancestor went through a series of stages. Stage 1 is your separation, which is your physical death and then isolating the deceased from the living. Phase 2 is transition, which is the mummification process, creating a new personality, devoid of any addiction to the trappings of being encased in a corporeal form in this particular earth realm, in this particular carnation. Part 3 would be incorporation of the transformed being into the new community of the spiritual realm, offering to the deceased sacrifices, libations, things of this nature. Now, the Necher deity Anpu, which is a jet black jackal-headed deity, high priestesses, priests, and specially designated people use ritual tools to touch the mouth and eyes of a mummified human, a sacred image, or a statue in order to enable the spirit of the deceased to receive food and drink, breathe, and to see sharply. The term for spirit in Kemet is Aku, or Ak, I should say, and it is represented hieroglyphically by a crested ibis bird. Now, I'm going to lay down some foundation so we can explain fully what this means. According to the Kemetic spiritual system, and often we say the term Kemetic, and we incorporate American English grammar, but when we want to say Kemetic in the actual language, we would say Kemeti. They use grammatically the Y to get how we would say Kemetic. They use the Y grammatically to come to that. So according to the Kemetic spiritual system, sustenance and Aku, which means light in the Kemetic language. These are the two key aspects of life desired for the living and the deceased. The Wepet-er, opening of the mouth and eyes ceremony, is a ritual depicted in funerary texts such as the pyramid text, Purim Haru, which is what the Europeans call the Book of the Dead. The opening of the mouth ceremony is important adept ritual in both Kemetic funerary practices and in temple practices. The opening of the mouth and ceremony, this is an arcane science that is governed by the pitch black god Anpu, and the ritual is specifically used in order to reanimate the dead, to endow statues with the capacity to spiritually support the living Kaaba, which is your soul, and to receive offerings from the living. So one of the features of the opening of the mouth and eye ceremony is to take an object that represents the now deceased living being that you love, or a leader, or someone that is important, and to endow it with power so it can be a spiritual and psychic medium between the other world and the realm of the living, so you can have interactions and provide aid. Now, the opening of the mouth ceremony is performed with statues of black goddesses, gods, black queens, kings, private individuals, and on mummies. The opening of the mouth and eye ceremony was also performed on the individual rooms of temples and in the entire temple structure so that it could be transformed into a structure that would invite invocation of various spirits to interact with. Now, the ceremony involves the activation of an inanimate object, such as a statue or what we call in Kemet the Sa, the mummy. So in Kemet, it was the Sa, S-A capital H, by way of symbolically cutting open in its mouth, which is called the Ro, or Ra in Kemet, and eyes, which are called Urti or Yurti, ritualistically. So the we, which is in Kemet, that's the term for the mummified body, is the we. So a person's grave, which is called per ankh, or a statue, may be used as a vessel that allows the spirit of the deceased to breathe and speak. The mouth of the recently deceased is open in holistic ritual magic in order to allow the deceased to serve as a reliable spirit medium that can articulately speak on behalf of the living, who are called Tepi Uta and the Anku in Kemet. Now, this is a variation. When you say Anku, that's a variation of the word Ankh, because another variation of the word Ankh is a person of great moral character, an important person in a community that's spiritually and morally sound. So in African spiritual systems, it's totally different from Europe. There's no such thing as RIP in African spiritual systems. So the concept of resting in peace was totally ignored and completely rejected. Africans all throughout the continent that practice indigenous spiritual systems actively consult and employ their ancestors on a daily basis. On one level, the ancestors and blessed dead literally serve as spiritual lawyers that petition and speak on behalf of us, the living. The Remechu and indigenous African spiritual systems adamantly teach that there should be reciprocity and constant mutual exchange between the living and the dead. Now, one thing I want to do is go over what are some of the terms that they use for an ancestor. And we're going to break down the hieroglyphs, the psychology, and the whole spiritual outlook behind the construction of these glyphs that form the names of our ancestors to call forth and invoke in magical rituals and spiritual ceremonies and things that's important. One of the, before we get to it, we're going to build off the living and show how the term, the base term, moves from the living to the deceased. Here we have the Tepiu Ta, the living, those upon the earth. If you look here, if you can see my pointer, we see the head and the P reinforcing the sound of this tep. Now, this isn't actually the letter for letter spelling. This is what's called a condensed spelling. So you don't actually have what you would have, the Y and the various letters. But here, right here is the land, right here, the land glyph. So an important theme of the head is the concept of beginnings or the source. The head is the top of the body and the uppermost part of our being. The concept of a beginning stems from the honorable recognition of the feminine principle and ancient observations of childbirth, and that it is the head which comes out of a woman's womb first. We begin our life on earth with our head leading the way, and this is how the term extends metaphorically to mean leadership. All of our actions begin with a thought. These are the underlying themes that are present in the Kemetic word tep, which means head. And here we have another glyph. This is going to be important as I lay down this foundation. This term also means head, headman, chief, the best of, tip of the toe, etc. Financial principle, top part of a pot, peak, upon, in front, before, etc. Now, the cognate word, or a word that in another living African language that is directly related and an extension of the language of Kemet that was carried on through outward migrations and things of this nature, in the Banda language of Central Africa, is Tiba. So you have Tep and Kemet, and as you branch out further in Central Africa, that Tep in their dialect became Tiba, which means top of the body, head. Now, when we go extend to the land of the deceased and our beloved ancestors, we have the term for the ancestors. When you want to call forth your ancestors, Tep Awi, the ancestors' predecessors, is what the translation. Now, we go from Tep as head leader to Tep Awi in the deceased as I love this term for the ancestors. When the word Tep is spelled like this in MoorishNewKemit, if you can see the glyph work that I'm presenting, it means person, people. The word Tepi means being upon, principle, first, or a high priest. The word Tepita means a survivor. The same term Tep, head, is used to designate the ancestors in the MoorishNewKemit language of Kemet. The ancestors and spiritual beings come before and they lead the way for our existence today. Since we come after the ancestors, which they call Orisha in the Yoruba, with the corporeal human body as our primary frame of reference, they would be the head and we serve as the body. So our ancestors are the head of this huge celestial body that we all form as human beings. And we are nothing more than the body. Our descendants and those yet to come would be the feet, or those agents in life that move creation forward.
I say.
Now let's get in. Before we're gonna, no doubt, check. We're gonna get into some other spellings. I want this to be a real spiritual experience where when you want to meditate, you have visual cues, you have the proper sigils, because I look at the spellings of ancestors almost as a sense of how you look at European sigil magic, where you have certain geometric configurations, certain pictographs that instantly ignite something spiritual within your subconscious. So now we're going to move forward. The Remech honored and communed with their ancestors. Here we have another term, Imihat, who are there in front, and those who are earlier, the ancestors. They had multiple terms to subtly delineate and show the uniqueness of certain ancestors and certain special personality traits that they had versus other great ancestors. Here we have Imi Ba, who is in the presence, who existed before ancestors. And if you see, our ancestors had no problem with body parts because they understood that as a leader, patriarchal aspects are highly important. So you always see the phallus emphasized for power, structure, reproduction, continuing the bloodline, and as the leadership and everything. So there are always different aspects in our terms that remind you the importance of the feminine principle and a masculine principle. Generally, in Kemet, the terms for ancestors are Tepawi, which means those who are in the front, the arms, in front of the arms, I'm sorry. And the arms may also be a reference to the hieroglyphic symbol I put in connotations, the D28. Now, the D28 glyph symbol, it looks like arms embracing a person, and that's for your Ka symbol. It almost looks like somebody's throwing up in football, the sign you give when you have a successful field goal with the arms raised. Now, here are some other spelling variations of Tepawi, the ancestors, throughout the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom. There's so many amazing spellings that I wanted to share some of them as we get into this, so you can see over the years and see how, if you get to the bottom here, you'll see how some of these references of Tepawi are references to ancestral nobility. So these are your noble class. These are your sovereigns who worked hard so people had their freedoms and certain liberties to lay a foundation for nation building. So in that, we see even in death that our sovereigns were always acknowledged because of the hard work that they put in for nation building. So we have ancestral even in here, you see, and with sovereignty, there's always I've noticed that whenever you see the word nobility or sovereignty, next comes documentation. It goes hand in hand. There's always a reference to some type of special documents, a trust, peace treaty, or something of that nature. Then we see ancestral house, ancestors of Ra. If you look under here, here's an interpretation of at the bottom of special ancestors here. These are the elite ones when you talk about the ancestors of Ra here at the bottom. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day right there. Now in Kemet, we also have the term Aku light for the ancestors, the perfect ones who transformed into stars in outer space, because one of the traditions, this is a whole nother topic. I deal with this in volume 2. It will take another 2 parts, is the deeper transformation of a living human being from this neutral space when you first die to the potential of what the ancestors can bless you into transforming into. We have the opportunity, according to our ancestral accounts, to transform into amazing celestial objects, planets, nebula, things of this nature. But I'll go into that in the future and show all the glyph works and detailed work on that. Here's another account of the ancestors. I love this term I use often in ritual is Jertiu for your ancestors right here. Now we got to remember, after death, every human being that is permitted in the realm that Christians, Jews, and Muslims define as heaven does not automatically transform into an ancestor. This is a great misconception of the African spiritual system to say that every single person that lives and dies is becoming an ancestor. You have to put in the work. You have to have the moral character to qualify for this. This is not something that you enter in based off of emotions, wants, desires, and things of this nature. There's a criteria and standard that our ancestors demand be met. Now, ancestor is an exalted, deceased human being who was first and foremost an exceptional, extraordinary woman or man whose deeds and daily actions in life uplifted, healed, enhanced, enlightened, and protected their children, family, the community, humanity, and nature. As you see right now, we go completely opposite of what's taught in European tradition as far as what is the foundation of life, what is truly important, what should you focus on, as opposed to European systems. The emphasis is more on material objects, greed, things of this nature, and sexual deviance. Billions of souls will be judged fairly in the afterlife and enter the sacred dimension of a so-called heaven, but only select human beings, cosmic entities, and select intelligent extraterrestrial beings throughout the living universe or multiverse will actually receive the prestigious honor of being spiritually initiated as an ancestor, an Emiba, that has dominion in the material and spiritual realms after they are deceased. Now we're about to go into the opening of the mouth ritual and some of the traditional instruments that are used. Here we have the opening of the mouth ritual equipment. This is from the old kingdom. I always like to go to the old school stuff. That's where you get the foundation.
Right.
So we're going to go through here and look at these tools. Now, for all you crystal lovers, if you look here on what would be your right side, what you're looking at is a naturally occurring, now I would imagine somewhat rare, depending on how it's been mined, a naturally occurring, what Kemet called a mountain crystal. These are naturally occurring crystals that they found on mountains in their retreats when they were fasting and things of this nature, establishing a spiritual state of mind. They came across crystal quarries in some of the regions that they were in. And this became your ritual bowls and things of this nature for communion. So here we have a limestone tray, the Peshef knife right here to the far right, and the vessels that I was telling you about right here. And this is from the 4th dynasty. This is old school. This is one of the original dynasties. This is from Pharaoh Khufu and everything. So the ancestors literally walk with you, around you, and through you. Our ancestors are expected to meticulously work for the Creator to speak on our behalf and to guide us as human beings. And we, in the material realm of the living, we are obligated to feed and make proper sacrifices to our ancestors and work on their behalf when it is necessary.
Ashe.
Ashe. Now, in order for the living to be represented by the ancestors or Tep-Awi in the spirit realm, numerous special tools were used performing the opening of the mouth ceremony, such as the Peshef knife that I just showed you. And here's the glyphs. So you see what it looked like when our ancestors were speaking on it. which is a ritual magic knife in the shape of it's a swallow's tail. You'll notice that in rituals, so much imitates nature and things that they interacted with on their daily life
Right.
that had its own unique individual spirit and personality. So you had the swallow's tail, you had the cups that were usually made of mountain crystal and obsidian, and you had the various sa. And Kemet sa means magic amulets. And here's the glyph work for that. Now, if I were to break down this glyph, its history, the psycho spiritual foundation behind that, that would take another 2 parts. I've done a whole chapter just on this glyph right here for magic amulets. It turns into it's a beautiful rabbit's hole. Now the term Sa Mer F, this means son who loves. This is a title of the ritual priest in the opening of the mouth ceremony. So Sa Mer F would be the actual African priest who comes in on behalf of one's loved ones to begin the ancestral process. So the ritual knife was used in the opening of the mouth ceremony, touching the knife to the lips of the deceased after being mummified so they can be fully reanimated in the afterlife. Now, in some instances, the adaze, which is called the dua word in the opening of the mouth ritual, here's the glyph work right here, it would be used in a ritual. Now, the word nuawapet is a powerful magical adaze. This is a more adept ritual tool that your high priest and high priestesses would use depending on various circumstances that they deem necessary. Now, this is a powerful adaze of one of my favorite netures, which is Wapwa Wet. That would be a whole nother discussion I'd love to have in the future. Now, this is used in the opening of the mouth. The opening of the mouth and eye ceremony is called, again, the Wepet in the MoorishNewKemit language. I need to explain this term. So you have 2 terms going on in Kemet. The actual written script is called Medu. So that's your writing script that you write down with the letters and all of that. The actual spoken language is called MoorishNewKemit. So you have 2 dynamics: the writing script, Medu, and MoorishNewKemit is the actual name of their spoken language, which just means the voice of Ra. Ra ni Kemet, voice of Ra. Things roughly translate to that. According to the ancient gods speak, I always want to give good references so you can see various angles of this information that I'm presenting. A guide to Egyptian religion. This is an Oxford University Press. This is going on the grammar. The verb wepi and the wepet are the opening of the mouth ritual, so we can understand deeper what this word means. It connotes an opening that splits, divides, or separates. It can be used, for example, to describe the separation of 2 combatants, the dividing their time, even an analysis or determination of the truth. Now, the word and weapon it simply means mouth, utterance, speech. Here, I wanted to show a better picture. Here we see ritualistically, if we were doing this today, we wouldn't necessarily have the fully mummified deceased human being, but we would have a representation statue and we would perform this ritual. But here we get a glimpse of what was going inside of the temple. Now, this being a king, deceased king, despite this being King Seti, when the king's deceased, they all transformed into a wasir, or what is also known as an asar mummy, meaning that they were being prepared for the afterlife and to have proper dominion. So here we see King Seti. This is Seti the first, and you see to the right Anpu with the ritual tools that I was showing you, getting ready to perform the ritual. Now, to reinforce, how do we know that he is deceased and he is considered to be on par with Asar? We see the name, if you look to the far right here, if you can see right here, the seated man, this is an old form of how you spell his name. So right here is an old hieroglyphic spelling of Asar, but technically this would be Wasir.
Okay. Wasir.
Yep, like one of the oldest terms for Asar would be Wasir, Wsir, in the translation. So you have Wasir and you have Asar as your principal terms for this particular nature.
Okay. Check.
So check. Now, the primary purpose of the opening of the mouth, again, is to summon the soul of a deceased human, a spiritual entity, and some conspiracy theorists even argue an extraterrestrial being or beings from alternate dimensions. The ceremony is performed to formally honor your ancestors, which are called Tep-Awi. Now, let's go after this. I love this hieroglyphic spelling too. I go over some of the things that go on. Now, here is a spelling for the goddess Ma'at. In this form of Ma'at, this is Ma'at in the form of Ma'at when she is performing the opening of the mouth. That's a whole nut. When we get into the
Okay.
goddesses, when we get into our black women having to step forth in the spirit realm and interact with activities like this, it gets deep. So here we have the opening of the mouth, and it basically involves up to 75 episodes. It's almost like a very elaborate play, if you will, of a very serious drama, almost like an opera, if you will. So episodes 1 through 9, this is on just imagine this 1 through 9 episodes on preliminary rites just to get started. Episodes 10 through 22 focuses on the magical activation of a consecrated statue of Mami, ritual tools, symbolically to cut incisions into the mouth, eyes, nose, ears, and to touch the major bodily organs of a consecrated statue or an embalmed mummified human, because they did perform this on mummified humans in order to transform it into a vessel for a positive spirit to safely communicate with our physical realm. Now, when we get to episodes 23 through 42, we have sacrifice, meat offerings aligned with upper Kemet. Episodes 43, 46, meat offerings aligned with lower Kemet. Then after that, nothing is wasted in sacrifices. So you have the funerary dinner and then your closing rites. Now we're about to get deep. Elegant variation. Huh?
I was like, we ain't deep already, y'all. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We're about to get into this. And let me go over this again. So when we talk about how important it is to perform ritual and what Europeans call ritual magic or our ancestral traditions, it's important that we don't rush this, skip steps, and become informal and disrespectful with our ancestors. We need to take out the time and do these steps with the type of love and respect it should be done to get the results that we want. So our ancestors in Africa, the script that they laid out was impeccable. By the time you get to episode 23, you're in a different state of mind. Long before the sacrifice of meat and animals or whatever. Now, elegant variations of the Negro Egyptian. Now, Negro Egyptian, when I use that term, that's the new name that they use for the language family that houses Kemet, because most of your contemporary linguists, for some reason, want to lump it in with Afro-Asiatic and these European-centered languages, and there's a constant attempt to hijack our culture. I've noticed that.
For sure.
Now, elegant variations of opening the mouth ritual can be found in different African spiritual systems, such as among the Yoruba in West Africa, where this same ritual is known as the Oletuju Inanna Orun, which means owner of the mouth of the road to source.
Oh, that's heavy.
Let's get deep.
That's heavy.
To all of y'all initiated in Ifa and those practicing the Shay, we about to have some fun today. The Congo gained independence from Belgium in 1960. From 1971 to 1977, the country was officially the Republic of Zaire. So before we use this term Congo, let's go back and call it by its proper name, Zaire, which was a change made by then the ruler Jean Mobutu Sese Seko to give the country what he thought was a more authentic African name, Zaire. Now, this is what he had to say, because there's another push. Europeans are always renaming our nation states all throughout the continent and everything. So he thought it was a more authentic African name. Zaire is a variation of a term meaning great river in local African languages. So the original name for the Congo, one of them that they chose, was Zaire, to refer to the rivers. Now, like the country's current name, it refers to the Congo River, which drains a large basin that lies mostly in the Republic. So now we're going to go through just to lay down, establish, the country with it being a large, near the Atlantic Ocean. So
Yes,
the
sir.
Democratic Republic of the Congo is the most populous officially francophone country, the fourth most populous country in Africa, and 16th most populous country in the world.
Mm.
Eastern Congo has been the scene of an ongoing military conflict in Kivu since 2015. Now, with that in mind, to lay out what's going on, the Remech Repertoire opening of the mouth ritual is also continued and represented well in the Congo spiritual system. So not only among the Yoruba in West Africa, we have the Congo by way of
Mm.
the Bawende Society and the Bimbe Society of Northern Congo, funerary veneration of the Nyambo. Now, their Congo interpretation of the opening of the mouth ritual, it is called the Nyambo. Now, as a source, you can go to often the reason I think we can't make these connections between Kemet, West Africa, and Central Africa, where our ancestors were primarily kidnapped from, is because we don't really get into ethnology, which is a totally different discipline of study and research that give you more penetrating and revealing information. And often you would find more information in your French and German accounts that are more honest and open or whatever, because I don't think they ever thought that an African American would be reading their research. So they could speak
Mm.
quite frankly. But this is a great source. Now, according as another source to Robert Ferris, Thompson is informing the text. It's called The Four Moments of the Sun. This is an 81 text. During the Adept African Rite of the Congo, because there are so many, even Europeans are amazed by this tradition. That's why I had to give these sources to show that there are so many top tier European researchers, PhDs, that have just instantly recognized the direct family connection between Kemet, West Africa, and Central Africa. It's like they can't stop talking about it. But when we get here in the States, it's muted. Now, in the Congo, the opening of the mouth ritual, the beloved honorable deceased are told to go with our tears, wet upon your face, and represent our problems among the realm of the deceased. Be our medium. By similar Congo interpretation, the depiction of the opening mouth with the lips rendered in relief symbolizes the leader speaking to the deceased. Now, the funeral procession has been completed, and now she or he is talking in the other world. If the open
Mm.
mouth of the Nyambo brings parlance into the other world and tears code messages of shared concern, the towering gesture of the Nyambo, which is right hand up, left hand down, and similarly significant. And in some of your secret societies, when I show you,
Right.
you're going to recognize this
Man,
gesture.
ain't that Baphomet?
Yeah, you're going to recognize this
Okay.
gesture.
All right. I just wanted to be sure.
You're going to
Baphomet in the
recognize this.
building.
Now, you exactly. That's why we're going to see the positive aspect. You get to see the creature that Europeans created, and now we get to see the contrast to that of that
Right.
symbolism.
Gotcha.
It maps. Now that symbol, Ashe. Now that symbol, that hands up, hands down, that you see in Baphomet, that symbolism in the Congo, it maps the boundary to be crossed. It identifies the cord connecting life to death. It is the crossroads pose. What we in Congo is what they call it. Now here, let's
See,
get
you're
deep.
in the
Let's go into
crossroad.
ritual. Standing at the crossroads. Here we have the ancient Egyptian opening of the mouth ritual is continued directly in the Congo and West Africa. And the only reason this is continued is because you're dealing with family bloodline. This is no coincidence. This is no accident. The rites, the rituals, the psychological, the spiritual outlook is all aligned in accord. Now, here we see the Nyambo, hand up, hand down. Here we have a different artifact right here. So pay attention to how these Africans are gathered around this Nyambo. Pay attention to the symbol. We're going to come back to some pictures and Kemet in this so we can make it line up. The Nyambo cult among the Bawende, this is Maat-Ra. This is from the National Museum of Ethnography. And this is in Sweden, like large African tribal bimbo doll In the crossroad pose, this is from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Nyambe doll has a wicker structure. It is finished off with cotton and is filled with straw. The right hand is raised, which means heaven, and the left hand shows the earth and the horizon. Hereby, the Nyambo tells the dead, I am the mediator, the intermediary. I travel from one world to the other. So it's a power statement with this Nyambo. It's letting you know that it's an agent of power and change.
Yeah, this is heavy, man. That's heavy. Yo, that's heavy, son.
So here we go to some more images. I wanted to show as we go through West Africa and Central Africa how the motif and the amazing artwork. Pay attention to are you seeing these sigils? Look at all these powerful sigils, totems, forces of nature that they want to see come forth and manifest represented in this Nyambo. This Nyambo is expected to be a bridge. So with all these powerful sigils are all aspects that they want to see manifest here on earth through divination, divine dreams, astral travel, out of body experiences, things of this nature. Yes. Now here goes more Congo and West African trop. So this goes through tropical West Africa and Central Africa, the Congo. You see our people coming up out of Kemet and moving with this. So here go two more Bantu tropical African mummies, a Nyambo from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And this one looks similar to what you see here on the right, is what's similar to what you see in West Africa as well, with some of the older tribes. Now, a Nyambo is an ancestor in the Congo spiritual tradition. That is a highly respected individual that, when alive, contributed to the scientific, medical, political, and or spiritual betterment of their community and family. Nyambo are expected to assist the living, and they often receive an elegant Congo version of the ritual mummification procedure using various textiles and clothes similar to a sa. Again, the Kemet term for mummified African. So what we saw in mummification, that slow, methodical, ritual, magical preparation and mummification of an African ancestor, it's continued directly in the Congo, West Africa, and Central Africa. They slightly changed the term, but the terms are almost related. They are related. So let's look at this. Let's go back here. You see this procession here. We see the Nyambo upright, and we see the living supporting this upright structure. When we go back to Kemet, we see, look at this. You can't make this up. It's the exact same procession. You see the offerings. Here you see the various African priests and offering bearers preparing. Here you see them getting ready. Here we have Anpu observing, making sure the process is proper. So what happens, what Anpu is here for, what the priests and priestesses are here for, are to make sure that a righteous spirit is called forth into this vessel and not something else that could be disagreeable. So this is all to ensure that what we have is a loved one transformed into an ancestor that we can trust and not be contaminated, or, if you will, possessed by a demonic entity, if you will. So here we have this, I should say, this is from the papyrus of Anpu, and the priest of Anpu performing the Wepet R, opening of the mouth and eye ceremony in Kemet. So this is definitely a beautiful papyrus if you want to see more expressed artistically and everything on papyrus, and you can see, the glyph works and the rites here written and everything.
Most definitely.
Now, Elisa, you know me, I always love to support our female scholars and female researchers and woman chematologists, because, their voices go unheard so often and they have so much amazing information to share. So Elisa Lagama, in her text, Eternal Ancestors, the Art of the Central African Reliquary. See, it's funny, when they get to talking about Central Africa, West Africa, in the text that are just geared for scholars, you get a whole different story. You don't get these notions of a separation between the stereotypical inhabitants of Kemet from West Africa, Central Africa, and the Congo. So, according to her, she defines the Nyambo based on studying with the tribes and digging deep into the language. She reduces it to cadavers or corpses, which may be a derivative meaning. This wrapping custom of the Congo and the large figure that is constructed is called a Nyambo. It is a cloth enveloped funerary bundle, consecrated funeral effigy containing the body of a distinguished or common person. I equate the Congo word Nyambo with the Medu Neter terms Nuet, which means fabric, textile, and Nefru, which means clothing of a god, fabric. So when they wrapped up the Sa, what we call the mummy now, they would use textiles and fabrics that they called neferu, which were specially consecrated. They were soaked in special materials, uh, natron, frankincense, myrrhs, aromatics, things of this nature, and they were prayed upon before wrapping the deceased body. Now, Robert Ferris, he also notes, this is a great scholar, Robert Ferris Thompson, amazing text if you get a chance to read his work. He also notes in the Four Moments of the Sun that the Nyambo gesture also marks a person transition from this world to the next. So when you see the hands up, hands down, that's a transition pose.
Mm.
So we 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 have been cheated on the symbolism of Baphomet. That is my argument. We have been cheated and misguided
Okay.
with a lesser understanding of our sciences and mysteries. Now, on behalf of his or her community, the Nyambo hails the heavens and the horizon line. When you die, you automatically transform into a spirit in the realm of the deceased. But not everyone will have the privilege of becoming a true Nyambo. Being buried in a Nyambo figure means the Congo community believes that this person will become their reliable spiritual medium in times of need and confusion. So, in order to become a Nyambo, the community must be behind this ritual. It's not just one person, it's a community. The babies must be behind this. The babies must believe that you are going to be something amazing, that when they become adults, when they become teenagers, when these babies, these African children go through their rites of passage, they need to believe and know that they can call forth this person that they are doing this ritual to aid them, to strengthen them, to provide knowledge, wisdom, understanding, strong character, protection.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
check. So the weapon R, opening of the mouth and eye ceremony, allows an individual to safely communicate with their deceased loved ones and to receive divine counsel from the ancestors, Netru or Risa, which are just different terms for the same spiritual beings. Now, this comes to the end. This is when I get to the part wrapping it up. At the end, I'll just go through some basic magic spells. In
Oh.
this text, there's several. So when you're doing the opening of the mouth and eyes ritual, these are texts. They're translated directly from what the Europeans call the Book of the Dead, but the actual term is Ru Perut in Peru. The book of fourth, the book of coming forth in the day and everything. So here we have spell two for giving a mouth to end, which is just symbolic of the name of the deceased person you're doing a ritual for. So here it gives you an idea of some of the rites and rituals, what they were doing as they were beginning to animate our deceased ancestors and give them the ability to speak, see, hear, all of your foundational senses and everything. So we see, Hail to you, Netcher of light, preeminent in the great mansion, in charge of the twilight. I have come to you spiritualized and pure. Your arms are about you, and your portion of food is before you. May you give me my mouth with which I may speak, and may my heart guide me at its hour of destroying the night. And then we go through the various spells of
Mm.
how, because one thing I love about the spiritual system of Kemet, it is very different from the Abrahamic traditions. In Christianity, Judaism, Islam, you have a, a canon. You have a book, almost a one and all book that lays down the foundation for everything, for your traditions, your outlook, and things of this nature. It is totally different. In Kemet, you go to a tailor. It's not a one size fit all. So in Kemet, if I was a priest, if I was just a beloved ancestor, if I was a healer, if I was just a great farmer, but my life was that of love and I helped out the community, I would not go, if I was a Muslim, I would not rely strictly on the Quran if we were in ancient Kemet, if that makes sense. We would have a whole body, a whole library of endless magical invocation, rites, spells, spiritual remedies,
Mm,
invocations, various rituals that were composed by our high priests, high priestesses from not just the old kingdom, but now you're talking about Taseti, which is what our ancestors called Nubia. So what they're bringing forth is a continuation of spiritual sciences, magic, invocations, and high rites that the average European would not be able to comprehend or appreciate.
most definitely. Most definitely.
So that
Boy,
was my
you go ahead.
simple.
Go ahead. Boy, you hit it hard with something, boy.
So we'll go back of this picture so they can actually see it. Let's go back to you. So we can just see.
Right, because you like as soon as you said that, I was like Baphomet. Like, do you feel like Baphomet is like the perversion of our traditions to the West or something?
I
I
think
mean,
to a certain extent, but from my research, I have to go back to my old notes. From
okay,
my research, our notions, and even what Europeans came to know of Baphomet, believe it or not, came from Arab Rosicrucians, if I'm not mistaken. It came
right?
from the Arab interpretation of the Hermetic order, and Baphomet was first introduced, and the symbolism was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, to the Knights Templars
Yeah,
or somewhere around that region. I have to go to my notes. I wrote about it in my
I
Roman
believe
numeral.
it's Nice Templars. I do believe
Yeah,
it's
and if
Nice
I'm
Templars.
not mistaken, it was the Knights Templars, and there was one other fraternal order that was dealing with the Arabic order when they first introduced Baphomet to them, the symbolism and the underlying mysteries associated with him. But I had to go back in my notes and everything. But yeah, I spoke on it. But yeah, I agree with you fully on that.
Yeah, I often think that a lot of them, what we call Masonic or whatever, we say it's Moorish, but it's like, no, I mean, a lot of it just like African traditions that were, you know, com- codified into Masonic
Yes.
rituals. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my
It's a
thought
lot
on
of
it.
yeah, there's a lot of in Mason. You see a lot of reenactments of various rituals from different cultures that they may have encountered and everything.
Okay,
But
so
from what
yeah,
from my vantage point, me not being a Mason, but from my vantage point, the Masons I've studied with and had a chance to go through, a lot of their demonstration of Kemet is diluted. So at best, it's a watered down, hybrid, bastardized version of what our ancestors did, to the point where if you try to line it up side by side, it would be way more misses than hits, because I think that the European misses the underlying foundation of what we were trying to express, and what our core values are and what their values are don't line up, because there's a lot of instances, even in translations, where uh, the translations of terms in Kemet for demons, that Europeans are demons, they're not terms referring to demons and things of this nature. So, that cultural clash can be a big problem, even if they are, even when they are trying to imitate what we do.
right, right. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I had a question too. It's just I just slipped my mind, but what was the one thing? You know, when you making this connection between Kemet and, like you said, Kemet, West Africa, Central Africa, all had the opening of the mouth ceremonies.
Yes.
Um, I ain't gonna lie, like, most of the time, I've heard of, opening the mouth with Kemet. Often they try to make it look like West Africa or Central Africa are separated from Kemet, and that whatever Kemet was doing, the people other places in Africa weren't doing.
Right.
This right here definitely makes a connection to pretty much Africa in general. Like because you're talking about Central, West. I mean, I feel like it's spread. Like, give me your understanding. Like, why would it? How come all these different African groups had similar rituals or ceremonies? Explain to me what you think.
I think like on the simplest level, you know how as Africans and African Americans, if what's the easy way to put it? Imagine you have you got a wealthy brother. He becomes highly successful. He creates his own community. Like we'll look at it now, like we'll look at it. Let's see. What's a good example? Black Black Wall Street.
Okay.
We had Black Wall Street in these amazing towns or whatever that were destroyed by Europeans. It starts out as a few great people. They come together. They create an amazing community. That community turns into um, a bigger collection, a conglomerate. Then the next thing you know, your nation building. You got a city state. Before you know it, you got an empire, and you're attracting so many amazing people after so many generations of children interacting and coexisting with each other, relying on people. So you had the Egyptians may have specialized in one thing. Then you have other neighboring Africans that have offer so much trade, and their core source, their core values through their language, they run into each other because there's a confluence where they're almost forced into each other just by their own greatness and success. So
Right.
when you become a beacon, you're naturally going to attract amazing people. No different than the migrations during when quote unquote slavery ended. And you saw these migrations to the north and everything. But it's like in our rare situation, when we make migrations come together, for some reason it's scrutinized totally different. It's no different than jazz. When we first created jazz, before you know it, you look up other cultures are doing it, and it's very similar. Now, as they start to
Right.
master our secret ingredients, you'll start to see them incorporate a slightly different expression, but nonetheless, the foundation, the original musician, it's in them. They have no choice because their foundation was laid by that. It's no difference than Miles. We'll just say Miles Davis was the one and only jazz musician. So everyone coming out of Miles Davis, even though they're their own person, they're going to have a lot of similarities because they're going to
Right.
be coming off of his tutelage. They're going to play that trumpet. There's always going to be a few notes, even if they're not as great as them. When you hear it, you're going to be like, that's Miles Davis. That's John Coltrane. I know who I'm listening to. That's the essence of it. And that becomes a glue. And I think that's with us because when you go throughout the African continent, the majority of their spiritual traditions, they have the same underlying themes, especially when you're dealing with the Bantu traditions. All of your traditional Bantu speaking communities, those are your primary continuation of Kemet. They speak actually they speak a genetically related language, meaning at one
Mhm.
point, Yoruba and these traditional Bantu languages that we see now, at one point, they were simply a regional dialect of Kemet. And we can demonstrate that. We can show you how your traditional Yoruba, that language was spoken in Kemet. What you see now is just a different dialect. And we can line up the terms and we can show you the morphology and the various phonemes and how the grammar structures change. But the words, they're the exact same word. It's no different than say, like, okay, you have the word, okay, I'm about to run. But when you want to do it in the present active tense, you say running with the ing. Now, we say running in Kemet, but then a lot of times what people don't notice is when you get to, let's say, the Yoruba people in West Africa. So instead of saying running, they would say ing run. The ing would be switched. So
Mm.
that article would be on the front and the other reverse, just as a simple explanation to show the continuity and everything, how closely we are connected. And that's how a lot of these different languages and dialects come about.
I got you.
But I got a whole text on that and everything, like with related terms and languages and things of this nature.
I bet you do, man. Let me see. Let me see. I got a comment in the question. I'm gonna ask you this too, because what came to my mind is, let me ask you about the dua. Like, how does the dua play into this?
Oh, well, you have to remember, like when we look at the Twa or the Batwa, as they're called by Bantu
Right.
speakers or whatever, you see the
Yeah.
Twa as a foundation of humanity. When you look at Kemet, often you'll see Necher, and on their head crown, they'll have the Twa on them. What we see in the Twa is the foundation of what we call civilization and humanity. It was a Twa that gave you your medicine. It was a Twa that gave you what you call morality. The 42 declarations of Ma'at, the first notions of that come from the Twa. It was a Twa that came forth and said, you're not going to lay down with an underage child. It was a Twa that says you do not have intercourse with your own siblings. And a lot of these notions of morality, they come from your Twa, your healing systems, your quote unquote primitive building structures and everything. Amazing. These were the people in times of need that Kemet relied on. The Twa were adept in um, healing, um, good Lord, what on natural healing, herbology, things of this nature, herbology, botany. The Twa were at a level of understanding with healing and herbs that they were aware of herbs and preparations for venomous snake bites. So
Right.
you had tribes where in Kemet they talked about that because that was a major issue in Kemet, snake attacks and everything. And
That's
you
true.
had to,
That's true.
they would go to the Twa to make anti venom.
So now because you got my mind going. Now I know this is all unscripted, y'all. So I'm just saying. So let me ask you about the Twa and the ancestors. Like, would they have had an opening of the mouth ceremony?
I believe they would have a ritual similar or something comparable because they celebrated the ancestors and everything, and a lot of what you see in the opening of the mouth ritual, you see that somewhat similar celebration throughout their daily life. They have rituals where at the end of the day they'll have song, dance, and rituals of what they went through and what they learned from it. So, say like if we had the 42 principles of Ba'at, I had to go to my notes. I got a whole section I got on about my next text. I get into the Twa, I get into that and everything. And they recap lessons of it. So, if you had the 42 declarations of Ma'at, the Twa at the end of the day. So, say like if the kids had a problem, a conflict or confrontation or whatever, or if they felt that something was wrong in the spirit realm, at the end of the day, they would come together and they would turn it into a play. It would be song, dance, and they would act out what happened, what they learned from it, and how to become better people. So I do believe that the Twa would have something similar to it. Now, I haven't really had a chance to research that, but that is a good research question. Now, I do know that they had various rituals to honor the deceased and everything, but I'm not sure if they have something quite that. Now, if they did, I would say it would be because often, like what you see with the Twa, although they're very independent, innovative people, they're also chameleons. The Twa, if you look at the history of the Twa, whatever group, tribe, nation state they're in, they can assimilate for some reason. They have no problem. They can always blend in with their environment to the point where you almost don't notice them. But they've
Yeah,
also been the subject of a lot of oppression, and their own people tear them down and disrespect them and everything.
I got you. I got you. So let me ask you this, because Do you think that as melanated people here in Americas, do we have anything like that over here in the Americas that is like the opening of the mouth ceremony that
I'm
you've
not
come
sure.
across?
I would have to look into that. I would have to look into probably see what they were doing in Central America to see what was going on.
Well,
But that,
even like with us, even like even though we were you know enslaved, do you think there's any remnants of opening the mouth ceremony found like among us in America? Just like
that's a good question. I think if we look, we will find something similar, even if it was loosely with some type of vague or obscure rite from Voodoo that was carried on,
oh, that's a good question. So like
or
even
a
with
remnant.
Voodoo,
So I would
because
have to. I would have
the
to.
Voodoo is a good question because Voodoo would that have do they have opening of the mouth ceremony?
Well, I know the Yoruba have it. So you see that present in Asheshe or Ifa. Well, Ifa is the oracle, but the actual lifestyle and the system is Asheshe. But you see that in the Asheshe with the the veneration of your Orisha. So if we have it with the among the Yoruba, I'm sure at some point, if we
Right.
dug deep enough, we would find that amongst us, because the Yoruba, those are our people.
Yes, yes, you're right. You're right. I mean, they're all similar in their form, so I would definitely see that. Let me ask you this. This may, I mean, this is kind of off, but like, what is the like the zombies? Like I know when I use the term zombies, it's very Western and
Right.
but like if you can convert that, like the term or the understanding of zombies, does that have anything to do with ancestors, or does that have anything to do with opening the mouth ceremony, or what is that about in your opinion?
I'm not sure if a zombie would be more or less like a negative ancestor, if you will.
Like a dark decease or a negative.
Or
Yeah, okay,
something to that knowledge.
I
Because
got
I
you.
know a lot of like, especially like when we look at stuff like what is that old school horror suspense Serpent and the Rainbow dealt with voodoo, and they were talking about the practice of making zombies and things of this nature. A lot of the preparations in reference to the pharmaceutical, using the various drugs and everything to create a quote unquote zombie,
Right.
often like what we would call the process, the pharmaceutical process of preparing some type of medicine or herbs or whatever that would convert a person to zombie. Often that would actually be used as a form of uh, um, sedation, or whatever. If you're going to do operation or things of this nature, it had a medical outlook
Got
to it, if I'm not mistaken. Because even in the Serpent of the Rainbow, they were talking about like when they were using Vodun rituals and everything to create zombies. They talked about that, like, this could be used for major medical operations, things of this nature, to keep somebody in a zombified state where they were oblivious to pain or whatever, but the effects weren't as bad as the medication that we use here in the West or whatever, when people are
you.
sedated for major operations. And sometimes you have these reactions to being sedated and things of this nature.
Okay, so another question. You know, being over here, how we been, going through our enslavement process, basically knocked on the head, don't know anything. So when we do our funeral processes today, they really don't have. I mean, like, what is that significance? Like, do they have any significance the way we do it? And it sounds like we've been doing it wrong in
Yeah,
our
well, we've
practice.
taken on the European, because even I get into the book, like, even how Europeans wear black garbs and clothes and everything to a funeral. And your traditional, especially like West African or whatever, everybody wears white, and it celebrating life on a totally different level. Let me see if I can. go through here? That's a good question. Hold on, let's see here. Let me check. See if I can go to that section. Did it stop sharing?
Yeah. You good? You're gonna have to reconnect.
Okay, I'm connecting. 1 second. Let me see if I can pull this information real quick. That's a good question. Let's see.
Yeah, for sure. But that's deep, though. I mean, it just because I'm like, as a people, we gotta kind of go back to, our ancestors, and if we're gonna connect with them, we need to connect properly.
Right.
So
let me see. Type in mourners.
Y'all smash that like button. Y'all smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. You see we dropping these jewels.
I think I pulled it up now.
Because a lot of us have gone to ancestral veneration. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
I hear it all the time. Yep. Whenever you click, I'll be ready for you.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Okay, I'm about to go and I'm gonna read it quick. Let's see here.
Even
with the funeral, we're gonna go on the funeral colors. Let me go in here. Let's see.
It ain't popped up. You didn't pop up. Are you trying to put it on the screen?
Oh, my bad. Let me put it on the screen. Here we go. Let's see here.
Gotta share it.
Bam. All right.
Here we go. All right.
Now, it is important to note that black does not represent being cursed or anything derogatory in Kemet and traditional African culture. In direct contrast, it is the color white that corresponds to mourning and the deceased. The color white has no racial connotations and is associated with cleanliness, spiritual purity, good moral character, the sky, heaven, the deceased, and ancestor veneration in Kemet and numerous traditional African cultures. That is why the Necher Asar is depicted mummified in all white linen, and why the West African Orisha Obatala is represented by the color white and white ritual clothing. The reigning Kemet word Jamu means white gold, be the color of white gold, symbolic of the body of Asar. When conducting important and highly adept rituals, white gold can be worn on someone's person or placed on an altar in order to represent the deceased body of Asar and to amplify the vibration of the ritual.
Oh, that's heavy right there, man.
We get deep.
I wish I could drop the bomb thing. Like that's heavy.
So when we're talking about funerals, in our funerals, when you deal with an African funeral, because the notion of being completely depressed and that total mind, body, spiritual mourning and destruction, that was viewed as problematic because it can tear you down physically, spiritually, psychologically. So often when we deal with funerals or whatever, we love our loved ones, we mourn them, we cry for them. But our ancestors, we hired people to deal with our mourning and handle that weight properly. So when you talk about the death and properly doing it, we outsource that. We would bring in initiated African women and men, priestess and priests, and your adept initiates on a way to priesthood. These were what's called your wailing women. Often you would hire the priestesses. The women, the African women would be called in, and they would wear white clothing to honor the deceased for you. They would make sure the rituals went, because in time of need, you could forget, you could be doing a special invocation, a special ritual, or rite or passage for the deceased. And because of your state of mourning, sadness, or depression, you could forget something. Something could go off track. So we would bring in these sisters and brothers, as you see, primarily the women. If you notice, you see all the women giving adoration to the various names and manifestations of Necher, God, and Necheret, goddess. And you also see the priest here. So you see the men and the women coming together. Actually, what you see in our funerals is the men rallying around the women. They serve as the mediators. Our black women served as the mediators. In these situations like this, these were the guardians of that transition to make sure it went successfully and that the emotions weren't too high or too low.
Got you.
Now,
so I got. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying this is from the 19th dynasty. This is from the tomb of the nobles.
Got you. Okay.
So now the word hedge means white clothes. It's a well-known fact that in Kemet or Chikum, now in the Chiluba Bantu term, they call Kemet Chikam. The black African priestess, priests, mourners, and the special hired professional mourners, such as the wailing women, would wear white clothing to funerals and for rituals to honor and commune with the deceased. Now, the Romesh, just like the Nubians, the Yoruba, Bantu speakers, and many other ancient black societies, they would wear white ritual clothing and apply natural white pigments, such as ochre paint, to their beautiful black faces or their body, and paint their bodies white in order to venerate the deceased, to simulate a ghostly appearance that is conciliatory to the ancestral spirits, and to reenact the symbolic death of the nature of Saw. So here we
Gotcha.
got black Egyptian priests, and professional mourners. Here they go again. So often you would have Europeans come in and see this and think that we were worshiping white people here. There are a lot
No,
of
no,
Egyptologists that thought they would come
right.
and say that these are Europeans.
Mm-mm.
When you see this, when you see women
Right.
painted white, these are professional African women that are coming in to aid a family at a time of need when a loved one is transitioning from our world to the next.
I got you.
And here's a possession. Let's see here. So let's see. Let me
So I,
see.
so I wanted to get in real quick though. When you get done, like if you see the sister question on the screen,
Okay.
I want you to address that when you after you make your point with this.
Oh yeah, this is it right here. I was just giving you like with the funerals, how it was the
Mm,
whole community was involved with our funerals. There was never too much weight put on one place or one side of the family. So that would be the major thing that I noticed.
I got a question too, but I'm gonna let you answer hers, and I'm gonna jump back on it
Okay.
if I
Okay. Let me
remember.
look. What was the question? Let's
Well,
see.
she
Should
said
we
that we should.
follow?
So sister says, uh, should we follow the Torah since we are official Jews?
Well,
What
that's a
do you?
loaded question. We'll keep it simple. First and foremost, we are not the official Jews. You were converted into Judaism. That is not our heritage. We had our own religion. We had our own rites of passage. We had our own deities long before Yahweh even existed. Long before there was a tetragrammaton, long before there was a Moses, we had our own traditions. The
Check.
reason why we claim the Torah is because your Jewish slave master converted you to that. It has nothing to do with our tradition. Now, if you want to deal with the Torah, that's perfectly fine. That's part of your natural rights. To study, practice whatever religious or religion you see fit or what fits you perfectly. But in reference to the Torah, the best thing I could say is it's time to give this slave master back his trinkets. It's time.
Yeah,
We've had him long enough.
yeah.
Hand your slave master back his belongings. Reclaim yours. Go to the
Check.
museums, take your stuff back, which he views as more precious than his. That Torah ain't in no museum.
Right.
You don't go to
Go.
no guarded museum to find a Torah, but you can go all in these museums. I've been to several of them, and you can see what they stole from the Benin Kingdom. You can see what they stole from the Akan. You can see what they stole from the Yoruba. You can see what they stole from Kemet. You won't find anybody guarding no Torah. But like I said, but if the
Check.
Torah, Islam, if that is your faith and that's what you want to study, by all means, you research it to the best of your ability. But it has nothing to do with your ancestral heritage. What is the
Right.
name for Torah in Kemet? What is the name for Torah in Bantu? What is the name for Torah among the Akan? What is the name for Torah? You know what I'm saying? Among Chaluba Bantu speakers. If you
Yeah.
ask a Chaluba Bantu speaker about it, they would say if they had not been exposed to colonialism, they would have no response for you.
Mm.
So when you're dealing with the Torah, you're dealing,
You're still dealing with that
Moses.
Abrahamics.
Yeah,
You're
you're
dealing
dealing
with
with Abraham.
Abrahamics.
You're dealing with Moses, a mythological character that was created and fabricated with the story of the Exodus and the evil Pharaoh enslaving. There's no historical accuracy, but you do see some jewels in it, like with all your holy texts. There are jewels to be found. You see jewels in the Torah, You see jewels in the Quran. You see there's some jewels in the Bible, but as a child, I played with toys. Now that I'm an adult, I had to put that down. So that's my outlook on it. If you want a safe space and practice under the umbrella of racism, white supremacy, and your oppressor, your colonial oppressor, by all means.
Shay. All right. So I got another one posted up. It says, now this one, let me answer this too. I'm gonna answer this too, but I'm gonna state it. It says that it's just really hard in the West because there's not a lot of groups of people into Kemet spirituality to connect with.
True.
We are very few in numbers. So I do agree with that, but I do want you to understand what the brother was saying, because it's not just about Kemet. As looking at West Africa, looking at Yoruba, like there are still those things that are around to us that we can get close to that
True.
still have, well, especially when we're talking about, from what I'm gathering from the brother saying, and from what I understand, there is a deeper understanding of ancestral worship, ancestral veneration, that is, dealing with the opening of the mouth ceremony, right? That you can find in Yoruba, which, and other derivatives of that. So you might not find a Kemet or a Kemetic. I'm gonna keep it real with you. It would be hard to find a Kemetic spirituality organization that has that intact.
True.
I mean, like Kemet been gone for a minute,
right?
So
it's a dead language,
right? So it's hard to find people that understand it Kemetic wise. But if you look at, like I say, Yoruba, you look at the other ancestors, the other people that's still around that brought it over here and that are still around, they have the remnants of what Kemet in them was talking about, or what other Africans was talking about, for that matter, on ancestral worship. So that's my take on it. Now you can go ahead and make your statement on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. It's hard to find a lot of the groups, and I found that a lot of the groups deal with a lot of pseudoscience and misinformation.
Right.
A lot of the groups, they don't deal with translating the actual text so you can get an actual meaning. A lot of it is hearsay and traditions from their American teachers, be they African American or European, and it tends to be this. It tends to be this wild, unpredictable mixture of Kemet, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, New World,
New Age. Yeah, New Age.
New Age. It's everything mixed in, and everybody's claiming everything. One minute, the same people teaching Kemet, they talking about chakras. Then they're talking about the Kundalini. Then they're talking about Buddha. Then they jump off, and then they're the Hebrew Israelites. Then they're talking about Muhammad, and it's all mixed in. There's no real, true, rigid research methodology, and it's a shame. And first and foremost, you want to have just a general understanding of the language, and the ethics behind the language, the grammar, so you get a good idea of what the ancestors themselves first and foremost had to say. So that's my main gripe, is that most of the systems that I've come across and studied, they're all these hybrids, and they're doing everything they can to get people's attention to make money. So they'll amalgamate with everybody. Like I said, like one day they're Buddhists, the next day they're raising the chakras, and they're saying chakras are in Kemet. Then they're saying this, then they're this, and then they're Native Americans in Kemet. Then it's wild. It's just a free fall, and it's sad. Now the serious ones, they know what time it is. They know proper research methodology. But the average person, if you're not familiar, if you don't have a serious teacher, and you don't have the time to invest or whatever, you can easily be led astray into this hybrid mixture of everything, where everybody's saying everything to get along. Everybody's saying something off the top, almost like science fiction to get attention. So you'll hear claims like, what is it? Next they'll get on turning Kemet into Star Trek. They'll talk about ancient light bulbs and
Ancient
all,
aliens, bro. Ancient
and,
aliens.
and that's where the dangers start because they can't read or write the hieroglyphs. Those ancient light bulbs are indeed, in fact, from a temple of Ra, and what they're calling light bulbs that those Africans were holding. Those those were celestial oars to build a celestial boat of Ra in the afterlife. So, and if you look to the side, you'll see the inventory of what was expected as an ancestor dedicated to Ra to create your solar boat to travel from here to the other side and everything or whatever. So on that image, that famous image, if you look to the left, it'll show you the inventory of how to construct the solar boat of Ra, what would be needed on it as part of your ancestral process, and what look like light bulbs. Those are just oars. So you see, there's a couple. Wujau, one of our good brothers from the Amen Ra squad or whatever. He did a very good lecture on that. He showed all the glyphs, the famous images, and broke it down, translated, and everything. So you got a lot of foolishness going on, a lot of foolishness, and it just comes from ignorance. When you're dealing with people that are illiterate to the actual culture they're trying to teach, you're in trouble. If somebody is claiming Kemet and they have not even the most basic understanding of the glyphs, that's going to lead to a lot of problems because the only thing you can do is, if you're illiterate, is just make up stuff. You can look at it, well, this seems like maybe, kind of, sort of, and then everything else that you don't know, can't translate, don't understand, people tend to reach and they'll go to other sources that they've always been familiar with. So whatever they don't know about Kemet, they'll plug it in with Buddhism. They'll plug it in with the Vedic system. They'll plug it in with Wicca. They'll plug in some with New Age systems. So it becomes like it can get very messy.
I got you. So I'm not gonna keep you too much longer. I got another question, though, and I'm gonna let you see what's up with this one. All right. So it says, in ancient Kemet, is ancient Kemet older than the Sumerian text, and
Yes.
is Thoth from ancient Kemet? I guess that's what they're saying.
He said, "Is who from?" Wait, let me read
Thoth.
Oh yeah, Thoth. Oh yeah, Jehudi. Yes, ancient Kemet is definitely older than Sumer, and I don't know why they push that for the writing system. But here's the problem. So what is that date? They had 3,000 something BC, whatever. So they give the date for the Sumerians. Here's the problem. Okay, let's just go along with that. Sumer is older than Kemet. They had the first writing system. How do you reconcile where Kemet's writing system came from? That's the problem these Semites and Caucasians had. So the minute you bring that argument to me, I'm just going to go back to Ta Seti and show you the Nubian script, which is the precursor for Medu-Neter. So long before Kemet, we don't have to argue about Kemet and Sumer. We can go to Sudan. We can go to Aswan. And I can show you a writing script long before Sumer. And Sumer is nothing but another one of our satellites. If I'm not mistaken, they were primarily a colony of Ethiopians and several other tribes. I got some great works on that and everything on
Right.
On
I would like to
language.
add too. Right. No, go ahead. I'm just saying I'd like to add to that.
Oh yeah, the actual African Bantu nature of Sumer, because Sumer shares a lot of similarities with Bantu speakers in West Africa or whatever. So that's going to be another issue you have to tackle, is that even when you get into the Sumerian script, you're going to have to deal with the similarities with the actual Bantu speakers that predate Sumer as they were migrating in there or whatever. So that becomes another issue that people have to tackle if they want to go that route. But yeah, indeed, Kemet, it predates Sumer. Sumer comes after and everything. Close, but second.
So would you
And Thoth is
thing
indeed.
you say what?
Thoth is indeed from Kemet. But you see in other African cultures, you see the symbolism or the notion, ibis baboons and things in that particular phylum of primates. You see that as an image of deity, in many African cultures. I got a whole section on Jehudi where I go through that. I show you comparable uh, deities that are comparable to Hootie in various parts of Africa. Matter of fact, this very book right here, I do that. Throughout the text, I break down all your primary Necharu, and this book was dedicated to the ancestral process. So in the beginning, I break down, give you a fundamental understanding of the tree of life, the language, the grammar, the syntax. Then we get into rituals. We get into the whole domain of the ancestors. I even break down hell in this book, quote unquote. I break down the malevolent dimensions that are recorded in Kemet and the landscape and what that translates to. So yeah, we had fun with that. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, here we go again. Let me look at this and see if I can show you a quick picture real quick. Let's see here. Let me go to this section on just.
Still in it, so
I'm glad he answered that question. Hopefully I can find. Hold on, let me see. I think I got it. I might find this quicker than I thought. Hold on. Let's see if I can show him a picture. That's a really good question. Let's see.
I just wanted to say too, like, you know, we talking about like when you saying like Nubia and them, we looking at. I mean, Kemet is one, but like Nile Valley. When you say it'd be more like a Nile Valley thing versus
yeah, because it's a collection.
Right.
Let's see. A collection of many great Africans. Where is that? Okay, here we go. Let's see.
You got see. Hey.
Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let me pull this up and share, present.
You already on there, you know that.
Oh, okay. How do I change it? I gotta share something.
You already sharing the screen. Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me start over. Share.
Speaking of that, y'all share this video. Y'all dig it. Share the video. Please like it because that's giving my algorithms what they need. They're giving them what they need.
So in the late period of Kemet, we are informed from a baboon tomb in Saqqara that the Netta Jehudi, Khonsu, you know, because he was combined with other deities through different time periods, became an important nocturnal oracle god to whom written petitions for priests were submitted. In this form during the Greek period, he was called Metesimus, meaning hearing ear. Also in the late period, titles such as priest of the living baboon or the Asar baboon were held by individuals who served as gods in the court of the sanctuaries that had the form of the baboon statues, which is the animal totem of Jehudi or Thoth in Greek. So when he says, are there any others? Let's talk about that. The baboon symbolism of wisdom is in diverse African cultures all throughout. Here's one of them. So the notion or the concept or the animal totem of Jehudi, here we go. This is a Mokande baboon mask from southern Tanzania, Africa. And here we can see the iconography, the symbolism of Jehudi alive and well in Tanzania. And some of the baboon iconography, like I say, it was imported from East Africa, where the baboon is still associated with the wisdom in several ethnic cosmologies. So not only do you see a deity, similar deity of Jehudi in other cultures, you also see it incorporated in their cosmology. You see Jehudi featured in their cosmology, such as here in Tanzania. So he's often depicted as a baboon, and this is very fascinating because the Ikoi people, the Ibibo, and the Igbo people of Nigeria use a writing script composed of symbols called Nsidi. There are 1,000 Nsidi symbols, of which 500 have been recorded, some that deal with warfare in the spirit. According to their legend, the Nsidi script was taught to them by baboons, which they refer to as Idiak. Now, the Nsidi symbols are Nigerian, and they are used on wall designs, calabashes, different metals such as bronze or whatever. So here you see amongst them, and again, another tribe in Nigeria, they attribute their writing script to Jehudi. So just like how the baboon Necher Jehudi is associated with writing, and he is featured as the symbol of writing and literacy. When we go into Eastern Africa, when we go into Nigeria, we see the exact same. Now they don't call him Jehudi, but the symbolism that he speaks of, it's right there. It's right there in Nigeria. So you had in the city, they're primarily used by the Ekpe Leopard Secret Society. Now the Ekpe Society, this African secret society, is deep. This
Mm.
is this is found across the state of Cross River. So a lot of times the reason why you don't see Jehudi in other forms is because they're cherished and kept, protected by a lot of your traditional African secret societies. But when you go within their secret societies and initiations, you will see symbolism that is comparable to Jehudi.
Oh, hey, I didn't even. Man, you just hit another jewel. Y'all, you just hit another jewel.
So let's break down the name. So the name of the force of nature called Jehudi has two key aspects that'll be analyzed. The first is that of its association with monkeys, and the second is its association with the moon. The African name Jehudi is connected to the word Jeje, which means monkey. When we analyze the name of the Netter Jehudi further, we notice that the last three letters of his name are Huti, Jehuti. So
Right.
what does this mean? And this is derived from the word Alti. So Huti was originally Alti, which means roll of, here it is in the Meta Netter script, so you can see it and compare. Roll of papyrus leather, scroll, list, tablet, metal plate with writing.
Okay.
The name Jehudi approximately means baboon who writes.
Oh,
So
why that make you think of Planet of the Apes though? Go
right.
ahead.
The
Go ahead.
first thing that comes to your mind is that. So the name Jehudi, this is Keon Greek, so you get to see how it evolved or whatever. And this is literature to mean he who is like the ibis. The assessment is not complete as this association is due to paronymy. So when you see people like your European linguists, they try to break down the name of Jehudi to give you understanding. They often go with forms that aren't accurate because one word can have multiple meanings in Kemet or whatever. So this assessment is not complete. Because Jehudi's primary association with the moon and knowledge, the root of his name derives from a word meaning light. So here's another thing we need to understand, that there's a portion of Jehudi's name that is reference to the pale light that is reflected by the moon. So the root of his name derives from a word meaning light. When you look at the root of the word, the name Jehudi, the D on many three consonant words in Medu Neter is a prefix on the root. So the semantics for the name Jehudi is comparable to the word Hayati, the two lights, which is a reference to the sun and the moon, because the moonlight is just a reflection of sunlight. So we also have the term Hayat, the light, High, the shining one, which is the epithet of the sun god.
That sounds like something else in European, like the Shining One. What that sound like?
Right. You see these titles.
That's interesting. Connections. Okay.
And so I get into Coptic too, how the Coptics came up with his name. So the Greek name for Jehudi is Thoth. So when people get mad at the Greeks, often you hear this, well, the Greeks were horrible. Actually, they had, for their accent, they had somewhat accurate depictions of the deities, because the names and forms somewhat changed as time went on. So, for example, the Greek name for Jehudi is Thoth.
Right.
Similar
Right.
pronunciations of his name can be found among Sahidic Coptic terms such as Ta'ut, Tha'uth, Thut, and Tha'at. So that's where
Okay.
this comes from. So
Okay.
when they try to say the Greeks didn't know what they were talking about, the Greeks were in direct contact with the Egyptians and the Coptics. So they were able to get a basic understanding of some of your pronunciations and the grammar.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we also have in Boreac Coptic, because there's various forms of Coptic. So I try to make that known, because I notice a lot of scholars, when people talk about Coptic, they only talk about a generic form. They never talk
Yeah.
about Sahidic Coptic, and then you had a Boreac Coptic that came together. So you get these newer
Crazy.
pronunciation of the deity, the Neteru that we see now.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's deep.
So yeah, that was a great question with Tahuti. But yes, that symbolism of Tahuti being the baboon associated with writing and wisdom, we see that throughout Africa.
Right. Okay. So this is my last question on it. Then we can wrap it up, my brother. But the sister asked, which I'm just gonna give you. I just want you to answer.
So,
Did Tahuti build the pyramids?
no, that's symbolic. I get what you're saying because I get what she's saying. Now, symbolically, if we were to talk about like in myth, if we were talking about like if we were to bring together a tale of the Neteru coming together to construct, yes, he would be a primary builder because of his association with science, mathematics. Him and Ma'at would be a collective that would go along with that. But your pyramid builders were human Africans that came together, organized, and put in the work.
Check.
But
Okay.
Tahuti,
Okay.
you usually see Tahuti, he's typically like more of a judge in the afterlife and things of this nature or whatever. But symbolically, yeah.
So then they was like, would Tahuti be equivalent to Yahshua or Jesus in Christianity? Is there a
So I
parallel?
think that yeah, that you see that the parallel with Haru and Asar and resurrection. But the total body of the Neteru, you see Christianity extract from them all. So you see little aspects of everything. With Jesus, you see a culmination of Asar and Haru. With the Ten Commandments, you see them pulling from the laws of the goddess Ma'at. And we can go through all the various symbolisms, how they took, little bits and pieces as they interacted with our people and everything, and then incorporated into their own religious demonstration.
Hey, see, it's crazy because they coming in now. Look, they want to
Right.
ask all. They want to ask all the questions
The
now.
Nibiru. They're in the accounts when it talks about the Neteru coming into being. I see no accounts of Nibiru or whatever. The Jehudi and your Neteru are more or less depicted as celestial phenomenon. It more as opposed to saying was Tahuti from Nibiru. The explanation for the Neteru is more comparable to astrophysics and quantum mechanics than extraterrestrial conspiracy theories. So when you see the formation of the Neteru and this universe from its infant stage, what they in Kemet called the Pa'ut, that original rising, the Pa'ut is used as an older reference when you look at the foundational grammar of the term, from a reference for baking a cake, if you will, how you bring all the proper ingredients and you put them in this furnace, and you bring them together and it rises. So the principle is very similar to what we see with modern astrophysics and quantum mechanics or whatever, and the Big Bang theory. So my answer, based off of what I've researched and seen in reference to how the Neteru came about, it would be more in line with quantum mechanics and your astrophysicists versus an extraterrestrial. And there's no accounts of Nibiru in the records of Kemet in their astronomy or whatever. So you see no notions of a wandering, floating planet in Kemet.
I got you.
Or a secret, or a planet X, if you will, Nibiru, planet X. We see no accounts of that. That's a New Age. Europeans brought that into the discussion. New Age Europeans and everything. It kind of like people that follow.
That was Zachariah sent you.
Yeah, they follow stuff like that.
But let me ask you. I mean, but in Nibiru in Sumerian text.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they mentioned that the planet or whatever in their accounts.
Okay.
Talk about the Anunnaki and things of this nature or whatever. Yeah, what was that? What was that text? The Enuma Elish leash and things of this nature or whatever.
Emu leash, yeah. Okay. Yep. That's Canaanite stuff right there. Okay. That's y'all hear it? I mean, man, that was pretty heavy, man. Little show, man. I say appreciate you coming through and giving us a better understanding of how to really interact with the ancestors. Like we really haven't. We just touched the surface a lot of times in our African centeredness or in indigenous spirituality. So this really gave us a lot to work with. So much appreciation. I'm gonna put your what's the name back in here though. That's like, and I say that check that book out right there, right? Y'all check that book out. This is coming. Most of this was coming from that book, right?
Yo, yeah. This whole, and believe it or not, we've been talking for over an hour. I only covered 8 pages out of that chapter. Now that chapter is called the Arcane Sciences of Anpu. Now Anpu is one of my favorite deities, and he's in charge of the afterlife and preparing ancestors. That one chapter is almost 100 pages long. I couldn't break it up. I couldn't change it. I go through the whole process. So if you love this discussion, you only got a very, very small introduction of this chapter. The chapter alone, I probably could have made it a small pamphlet. But I just wanted everybody to have a nice body of information. So when you do ritual, you meditate, you've got some beautiful symbols and some amazing information to, more fully understand the ancestors and, interact with various rituals and things.
I say, definitely, man. Definitely. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add. That was a lot. That was a lot for y'all to deal with. I'm trying to tell you, man. I appreciate you coming through, man. You're always dropping these jewels on us, and I see your growth, and I definitely see your study in this field. So it's much appreciated. Much appreciated. Yes, sir.
Definitely appreciate it. You know how we do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I'm gonna hit him with an ad. I'm gonna hit y'all with an ad, and then we're gonna be out.
Yes, knowledge is for the people. Get your books today on IndigenousMoors.org. Your one-stop shop for indigenous needs.
All right, y'all. So y'all please go check out my man's books. Please check out Amen Maat-Ra book on Amazon and IndigenousMoors.org. And catch out our other videos. I got brother other videos. We've been doing this for a minute. Like y'all can go back. We've been doing this for a minute. So y'all can go check it out, man. And check out his work. So once again, I appreciate you, man. And I know I'm gonna catch you. We got a lot of information. A lot of information out here to give you. So.
I got a collab. I want to link after the show or whatever. I had a couple ideas to run past.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, we gonna link up. I'll call you when I get out of here. So y'all, we out, man. Appreciate love, peace and love. Appreciate you guys. 2009.
Pleasure to be on your show.
All right.